Welcome to the D-VELO-P Cycling Training Podcast, where we untangle the complexities of peak performance in cycling. My name is Fredrik Eriksson, and together with my partner in crime, Erik Åkesson, we are the dorky coaching duo who will be your hosts. All right, hello and welcome to another episode of our Cycling Training Podcast. I'm Fredrik.
And I'm Erik, and today we're going to talk about a study that is pretty good in time since the Spring Classics is upon us right now.
It's almost last. We have had a strategy for this.
Almost. No, but the study, it was a pretty interesting study called The Role of Cadence and Torque in Fatigue-Related Power Output Decline in Cycling's Grand Monuments from Spain. I'm not even trying to pronounce these names, the authors. But it was in the study they got in all the data from every top 30 finisher in all the 5 monuments from 2021 to 2023, and compared what is the difference between the top 5 and the top 30 in these races.
Yeah, and they're tough races, and for people who are not too involved in cycling, the 5 monuments in cycling are Milano-San Remo, Tour of Flanders, Paris-Roubaix, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and Tour of Lombardy. I think some people have differing opinions of which races are the monuments. I think the one that was this Saturday, Strade Bianche, is certainly growing into being some kind of monument, but these are the oldest and biggest races in road cycling, certainly.
Yeah, and Strade Bianche it's only 20 years old, and I think we can call it a monument based on popularity, but not what regular cycling fans calls the monuments.
No, I think Liège, Bastogne-Liège, or La Doyenne, the old lady, is. I don't remember if it's first raced in the late 1800s or if it was early 1900s, but it's a really old race.
Pre the World Wars.
Absolutely.
So in this article, they looked at the role of cadence and torque in the power output or the power output decline during these races.
Yeah, they were especially looking at how this plays out over time, because these are quite long races. I think all of them are over 240k, and I think Milano-San Remo is the one who has, well, at least in the recent year, has been the longest, which is, I think, actually has even crossed the 300k mark if you include the neutralized part of the race in the beginning.
Yeah, and they are pretty different in characteristics in how these races are. In Milan-San Remo, for example, it is pretty easy for most of the cyclists the first 5.5 hours, and then the last 40 minutes is very, very hard with 2 climbs with Cipressa and Poggio. While in, for example, Paris-Roubaix, there are many sectors of cobblestones that are very challenging in that way. And if we take in Lombardia or Liège-Bastogne-Liège, it's the hilly monuments. So there's the elevation that comes to role in that ones.
Yeah, they have quite different characteristics. Although they're long races, they're very different and how they are raced and the course profile, which of course has a huge influence on how power is and of course torque and cadence as well plays out over a race. But it's still interesting to group them together and look at top performance and almost top performers.
Yeah, and in this study they included 64 professional male cyclists. It's only male cyclists in this study. It would be interesting to see the females as well, but that may be a later project for these guys. But it was 64 professionals with it was 14 who achieved top 5 finishes in these races over 3 years, and 42 people, men, placed between number 6 and 30. So it was not really that big difference in at least not top 5, but in even top 30. It's only 42 different people for
I think
15
it was
races.
64 riders that they got power data from, files from. So it wasn't all the riders who were top 30 in all these races. I don't
Ah,
think. But I was actually positively surprised that they managed to get 64 riders' files from these races, which is, of course, pretty much enough to get good, statistically significant data from this, or at least should be.
yeah. And if you look at the characteristics of these cyclists, it wasn't any difference in body mass. Top 5, 70.6 kilos in mean, and the top 30, 70.9. Even in height, BMI, average power, peak power, normalized power, never any difference. The only difference they saw with the p-value under 0.005 was, of course, result in the race, which is what they looked at, and something called the compound score, which is not really anything you and I have that much experience from. But it's basically, if you take the absolute watts for, in this case they measured 5 minutes, times the relative watts in watts per kg, and then they got a compound score, and there they saw a difference in the top 5 versus the top 30 riders.
Yeah, and the hypothesis they had for this study was that they thought that cadence will decrease in association with reductions in power output under fatigue conditions. That was their hypothesis, which is based on, I mean, there's there's quite a lot of data from Grand Tours. This was the monuments, and there was not as much data on monuments. That's why they wanted to do this. And there's a lot of power output data out there, but there's less that looks into the cadence and torque, and how those two, because it's cadence and torque that creates power, where torque, or if we start at the pedal, I mean, you apply a force on the pedal, and then you have a lever, your crank arm, and that creates a torque at the bottom bracket, and then of course, depending on how quick you pedal, how high cadence you have, you get different power outputs. So it's the play between cadence and torque that creates power output. And looking at those two independently and studying how they kind of vary during a race is of course really interesting, especially in monuments, which hasn't been studied before.
And in this study, they only they got the cadence, of course, from the files from the riders, but the torque was calculated using the equation power output divided by cadence times pi divided by 30. So they used a mathematical model to explain the torque,
Which already is a source of some kind of error, because doing it like this, or actually the only way to, even if you had calculated by using the crank arm length, you would probably and looking maybe at pedal force and things like that, it's still calculations over one pedal revolution, or as a function of the mean for several pedal revolutions. And as everybody who has been pedaling on a bike knows, that you don't have the same torque through the whole pedal revolution. You have more torque when you're pushing down, unless when you're in the upward phase of the upstroke phase of the pedal stroke. And so this doesn't say anything about any changes in that profile of how the pedal force and thus the torque differs within a pedal stroke, and how if that changes when you're fatigued. It only looks at the mean, which could be devious, because the mean might be the same, but the profile might change.
Yeah, exactly. And if we go into the results, they have what I think is a pretty good figure. You'll have to spend some time looking at it to understand what you're seeing. But it is pretty easy to understand if you know how races usually looks like, I would say. Because here they put out the mean power, the mean cadence, and the torque for the times 10 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, and 20 minutes, which are pretty much the crucial times in cycling races. And then they have from the beginning of the race, when you've done 0 to 30 kilojoules times body weight, up to over 60 kilojoules times body weight. And here we see that in almost every power from 10 seconds to 20 minutes, the mean power are the highest in the top 5 riders when they're fresh, and when they have done over 60 kilojoules per kilo of body weight. It's not significantly different in every time, not in the 1 minute power, but in the 10-second power and 5 minute, and very much a very big significant difference in the 20 minutes.
And that is not very surprising,
No.
considering that that's how the races are ridden. Especially if you are a top 5 contender, you're not doing your maximal efforts until probably after you've expended 60 kilojoules per kilo at the end of the races. And you noticed also that in the spectrum of 50 to 60, actually the top 30 riders are performing better, but that's probably because they've been dropped 1 or 2 times during that period and are fighting back.
Yeah.
Probably, where the top guys are still they've dropped some riders and then they're chilling, so to save for the last push.
Yeah, because if you're in the front with Tadej Pogacar and Mathieu van der Poel, it's not the 10-second sprint with 40 kilometers left that are crucial for them, but it might be crucial to break out from the chasing peloton to maybe come top 10 or top 15. So that it looks, if you only look at the figure, it looks a bit strange and with a significant difference in that part. But if you think about how races usually goes, it's not that that big of a shock.
No, not really at all. And like I said, some of these top have been dropped. Others might have be there and have somebody who is a top 5 contender starting to help that rider, because they've been sheltered as well up until then, and now they're putting in their best work to help their top rider. So that's why they perform better in this part of the race as well.
Yeah, and they looked, of course, at mean cadence and torque as well. And here we see no significant differences between the top 5 and top 30 in any length of time, except for the 10 second, where the torque was higher in the top 5 riders in both fresh and fatigued, while in any other length of times there were no significant difference.
Which is interesting, of course, but it it doesn't prove the hypothesis that the authors had when they started this paper. And if we're gonna speculate around that, I mean, if you look at the top 30, they're all really good riders. And of course, the top 5 are the best of the best. So the differences between these riders are so small that it's really difficult to get any statistical significance when looking at such homogeneous groups. Like, of course, the top 5 riders are better, but the difference is so small to the rider is 27th.
Yeah, and we can see that in table 2 in this article as well. The top 5 riders are consistently producing higher power outputs from 10 seconds to 20 minutes, fresh or fatigued, and every stage in between than the top 30 riders, which is, well, they are stronger and better, so that's not so strange. But the drop off between the watts when you produce when you're fresh and you produce when you're very fatigued are, you counted that it was 1 to 2% drop off in consistently between 10 seconds, 1 minute, 5 minutes, and 20 minutes for the top 5 riders, while it for the top 30 was 4 to 6%. Am I remembering?
Yeah, 3 to 6%.
Yeah.
If you look at table 2, I mean, you can't do a calculation like that. It doesn't hold water statistically and scientifically, but it at least points to some kind of trend that the best riders are both better from the start and have a smaller drop.
Yeah. Which is not a shock.
No, of course not. That's why usually they are better. Of course, there's more things that go into cycling performance. There's positioning in the bunch, being at the right place at the right time, technical skills on the bike, especially in a race like Paris-Roubaix. So there's a lot of things that are not power output that differentiate as well.
Yeah, and as you and I talked about before we hit the record button, it is not that often that the favorite riders or even the top 30 favorite riders in the race have to do 450 watts 5-minute effort in the beginning of the race. Well, they all do it in the end of the race, where they have accumulated a lot of fatigue and expended over 6,000 kilojoules of energy.
Yeah, and that's just how races are ridden, which I'm sure the authors are quite well aware of, but that's just something to take into account when you're looking at the data that they are providing. And of course, I think they might have been a little bit disappointed that they couldn't find statistical significance for their hypothesis. But I mean, looking in general, the trend for these data as well was that torque and cadence kind of changes during the course of the race. So for a given power output, which torque and cadence relationship that creates that power changes a little bit. They didn't find any statistical significance in their data, but I think we spoke about another article on this topic previously in the podcast, that usually if you just want to generalize, torque, I mean, most cyclists have pretty much the same cadence. So it's torque that really differentiates between how well you perform. But when it comes to durability, your ability to sustain as a large portion of your capacity as possible, that seems to be that it's mostly cadence that drops, not torque that drops, that produces a decline in performance over time during a race. And the trend was the same here, but they couldn't show it with significance.
And the study you're referring to now is from Peter Leo and colleagues, called Mechanistic Influence of the Torque-Cadence Relationship on Power Output during Exhaustive All-Out Field Tests in Professional Cyclists.
So that's just something to keep in mind, that power is not just something to see in itself. You have to at least in some way take into account how that power is produced.
Exactly. They as well said that they have several limitations with this study, of course, and the absence of data on, of course, nutrition and hydration is critical to have, because well, that plays a huge factor in how much energy you can take into your body during these long races, and what kind of power output you can produce after 6 hours. And then they also said that the limitation was the calculated rather than directly measured torque that can introduce some estimations error.
Yeah, estimation errors, and might actually could potentially at least miss the point altogether if the changes is not in the mean torque, but how that is how the force on the pedal is distributed throughout the pedal stroke, if fatigue influences that in some way. But hopefully we'll have that kind of, that's not their fault. I mean, it's I don't think we have that kind of measurement possibilities at the moment, but that's something that might change when technology in cycling evolves, which it is doing rather quick.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's it for this study. Or do you have anything more else?
No, nothing more than that it is difficult doing this kind of research, so it tends to get a little bit messy, and usually in a disappointing, not significant kind of way, but it's still valuable as knowledge for how cycling performance is conducted, or what goes into it.
Yeah, and it's still science in cycling, which is nice to read.
Yeah, for us at least.
Yeah. So the conclusion from this study is that the top 5 riders are better than the top 30 riders at cycling.
A wild conclusion.
Yeah.
Who knew? Who knew?
Exactly. That was mind-blowing.
Yeah.
No, but I think that's it for this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes, it was a pleasure talking about torque and cadence and power, as always. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Bye. And that brings us to the end of this episode of the D-VELO-P Cycling Training Podcast. For more training tips and deeper dives into performance, you can follow us on Substack and check out our blog on our webpage as well. You can of course follow us on our social medias, Instagram and LinkedIn, and of course Facebook. And if you got any questions or ideas for future topics of the pod, leave a comment below this episode. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening, keep pushing forward, and we'll see you next time.